generation will just take it for granted. There's stuff out there that's not very nice, and you know, they'll go for what appeals to them. I mean, yeah, I don't like the kind of the Daily Mail approach, the Mail line. It's pretty different to the Daily Mail, but I kind of think it's become really successful and great for them. But that's not all what I want to read every day. And so, but the way I access that stuff is often via social media, is often by people I trust. And that's the great thing now, that it's all about trust and building up that kind of trusted brand.
Yeah, and you do find when you get yourself onto that page, it's very hard to get off it, isn't it? There's always something that catches your eye. But I think it leads to the further point, which is that you talk about following the fire on Twitter, but perhaps the investigation into the cause of the fire, which might be a serious piece of work that requires lots of resources and lots of time. How do journalism organisations ensure that that kind of journalism can survive? Maybe your thoughts on that?
Well, it depends. I mean, big newspapers, general interest newspapers, they are struggling to keep their investigative teams. I'll give you an example. I recently had a conversation with a good friend of mine. He's a court reporter in my newspaper. And he told me that he was working on a story and he needed some desk research. He scanned archives of different newspapers for the story he was working on. And his discovery was basically that since 2004, almost nobody reports from courts in Poland. Like general interest newspapers. Yeah, that's right. And I told about it John Lloyd, an FT columnist and Reuters columnist. And he told me that it's exactly the case here. It's not investigative journalism, it's just court reporting, which is a bit simpler than investigations. And it is sort of dying. So that's what's going to happen, I think, to investigative reporting. If we will keep it going like this today. And everybody is looking for different ways. Rasmus Nielsen, a great media scholar, a very young one, my fellow at the Reuters Institute of Full Study of Journalism in Oxford, he told that our generation can enjoy an extremely abundant media diet. We're getting as much content as we want, on as much across platforms we like, but it's all being funded by the generation of our fathers. They're buying newspapers, they're paying for news. And the question is, how long will it last? Nobody knows.
There is some evidence, though, when you have specialist publications that actually have fantastic and some of them growing markets online. You know, it's one of the contradictions in all this. And if you look at what's been successful, well, The Economist is massively successful online with a very expensive pay subscription. At least it was the last time I checked. Wall Street Journal, very successful, full behind the paywall. And even in the US, you know, there's Politico, which started as a website and has actually now become a magazine because such was the demand for it.
Yes.
Or things like Congressional Quarterly, it's a $2,000 a year subscription.
And I think if you look at things like TED Lectures, for example, if you go back to the 1960s, that sort of content would have been on TV, and you never see that sort of content on TV anymore, but it has a very lively place online.
It's worth mentioning something like ProPublica, you know, fantastic investigative, online-only unit, which is cleverly kind of, you know, it's got a brilliant set of reports and they're very innovative in the way they present stuff, but you know, what they'll do is they'll work with traditional media to surface these kind of amazing investigative stories, and there's still investigative reporters out there, and those pieces, certainly, you know, we run a piece by Paul Lewis, you know, it gets a lot of traffic as people look at it, and I think that there'll always be a room for it, but whether they'll always have the budgets is a whole other thing, whether the big companies that run media groups will think it worthwhile. I mean, you know, the stuff that's happening at CNN, which you kind of think, is this what people are going to be doing? I don't know.
Yeah, but I suppose they'll also, oh sorry, Madam here.
No,
You go ahead, it's fine.
Actually, two questions. The first one, how important, or don't you agree that people now are moving to read more about the local news rather than regional or international? And this is one of the solutions that was given a few years back for any newspaper to survive, is to focus more on the local news. And the other question is, how important is the verification process or the checking process or anything? For example, if I see something on the Guardian website, I would take it as true and as fact, because I know that they have done their homework. But no, honestly, I mean, or any respected media outlet like the Guardian. But I would question any other outlet if I have my own doubts or if their website has previously goofed at one point.
Okay, two questions there again. So, Laura, local.
I think ever since I've done this job, there's been a debate about whether or not we should do more local or less local. It swings like a pendulum, and local papers in the UK have had a very, very hard time. There are a few that still survive, but a lot have shut largely because the classified advertising market they relied on has basically died. But even in broadcasting, that debate happens all the time. I don't think I've ever seen evidence that said if you did more local, somehow we'll all survive. I may just not have seen it, but I've never seen it. But I think that's a debate that happened even before any of these challenges were around. Secondly, on verification, I would always double check something from any source anyway. And I think it's a big generational thing though. As a citizen rather than a journalist, I think we have to work very hard that people who are coming through know that what they read online has to be taken with a pinch of salt, unless it is branded from something that they really, really trust, whether it's my organisation or the BBC or one of the big papers. And I think it's verification for journalists is as important as it has ever been. My concern is that we make sure the young generation and those to follow is aware of that too, and we teach them that.
Simon?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, in my area, data actually offers a lot of opportunities to local reporting, because suddenly you can compare where you live to somewhere else. And there's Wales Today has a really great data journalist who works for them, who's always showing how that bit of one bit of community compares to another around the news, and that's the kind of solution that could work out people. Who knows? But certainly, another stuff that we do does really well is often the stuff that allows you to compare where you live to somewhere else, so you can see how you can listen. On the verification thing, I think, certainly from our point of view, the Guardian makes mistakes all the time, with broadly out, but people know it because we have we have research, we publish corrections, clarifications, and I think being transparent like that, because everybody's human, right? Sometimes aim is a quick hit, but you have to be open about it, not try and hide it, and try and be trustworthy. I mean, I'm paranoid about states and data because it's so easy to get things wrong. Government data is published in an awful state in this country, and almost as if they're kind of daring you to get things wrong with it. So it's up to you as a journalist to make sure you're right all the time. I'm absolutely paranoid about it. But that's why we try and involve the community and get them to help us and say, is this right? Can this be right? Because often you look at a story, a data story, and it looks amazing. And the reason it looks amazing is it's not right. And you have to use that kind of second sense of thinking, could this be right? And engage the community, because out there will be the experts in that area who will say, well, actually, I don't think that data's right because of this, and then you can involve them in the story.
Vadim, how do you face this problem that English is obviously read by millions and millions of people around the world, but not that many people outside Poland or outside the Polish diaspora speak Polish or are interested in reading Polish content? How do you deal with that?
Oh, well, that's what I was about to say. When we're talking about successful publications online, like The Economist or Financial Times or The Wall Street Journal, these are big worldwide publications, in fact, with huge international markets. In Poland, we don't have such market. We have just Poland and diaspora, which is not really big. At least not to an extent to maintain such a business online. So we're counting our audience in a bit more, I would say, limited way. And I was surprised actually because I was doing interviews with different editors in different newspapers for my research paper. And when I was talking to The Guardian, the guy told me that basically it's an interesting project for them because they can attract some traffic from Australia and the US on project which is basically, I remind you about European Union. We can't think like that. We can only think about our local readers, and it narrows our perspective significantly. So this profitability issue is a big issue for us.
Gentlemen over here.
From what Eric Schmidt started guessing out years before, regarding the French model that you started financing the French press with 60 million euros for their projects. The first question would be, why would Google finance the press? Because articles are everywhere. But as I said, Eric Schmidt learned that your ads must go in the same time with relevant articles, with the good kind of press. And my question would be, is this financing of 60 million euros the first step from a strategy that Google wants to insist on in the next years, of financing press to have relevant articles, to join your ads, your way of making money from the internet? And I understand that bloggers or other media organizations have appeared in the last years, but they are not enough to produce this relevant content that you insist on. So, to my question, if this is the first step of financing, I would add, is this the only solution? Is it moral to finance the press? And will EU, the European Union, maybe follow your model to actually accept that the press can work in the next decades through this kind of financing from the authorities? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good question. The first point to make here is that this is not a question of financing the press, and it is working in commercial partnership with the press. And that's something that we've been very, very keen to do over a number of years, to have strong commercial partnerships with the newspaper industry. We've seen the suggestion in various countries, in France and Germany and other countries, that Google should be paying for the links of newspaper organisations, and that's a route that we've always said we can't go down. And if you look at the French case, it's a commercial partnership aimed indeed at creating high quality content, but it's not financing the news industry.